You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 65, Living in an RV with Kirsten McCay-Smith. On the road again.
Writing a book. It can be the best way to build or grow your business, or to simply tell the story that you wish to tell. Learn how to write your book in 30 days or less. Pick up 30-day author today from Amazon, Apple iBooks, or other online retailers.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger, and I can think of no better time to place this interview than today. If you happen to be listening to this interview on the day it launches, which would be, let's say, January 30th, 2016, that Friday, then you're actually listening to something I pre-recorded so that I could get on the road in my own little RV, a travel trailer that Karen and I bought, specifically as a phase one to our RV lifestyle that we're building toward, something I'm calling our portable life. So today, I'm actually speaking with somebody who has lived in an RV full time. She's drawn back from that a bit. She's already completed that quest, we'll say, that journey, and now she's living in her home again, their house again. But she had some great insight into what it means to live full time in an RV, some of the challenges and ways to deal with problems, that sort of thing. So I'm really looking forward to presenting this interview to you. And while you're listening, just bear in mind, Karen and I are actually right this minute on the road. I'm going to assume we're on the road because this is Friday. Let's see what time when this goes live, 7 a.m. Yeah, we should be on the road, I think, on Friday morning, probably in the Louisiana area, but we're going to be heading back to Houston at that time. So we'll be wrapping up our vacation, I guess, our first big trip in the RV, and hopefully I've recorded something on the road. I'm planning to record something about the experience in one fashion or another, so I'll put that on the podcast at some point. You can count on it. But and hopefully we're safe. So your prayers are appreciated. But aside from the travel and everything, I wanted to remind you that my book, 30-Day Author, is currently available for just 99 cents. It's going to go back up to $4.99 at the end of the day on the 31st. And that would be tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this. So through January 31st, 2016, you can get 30-Day Author for just 99 cents, which I think is a bargain. It goes back to $4.99 after that, and that means that right now is the best time to pick that up and give yourself a little bit of a boost as you try to meet the goal of writing a book this year. If you're an entrepreneur, this is a really great deal for you because it's all about developing that daily writing habit so that you can create a book that you can use as a marketing tool, as the ultimate business card, as I like to say, or just to help you define your brand both internally in your own organization and externally to your customers and clients and what have you. If you're a fiction author, you can use this book to kind of leverage some of the techniques within so that you can develop that daily writing habit and start knocking some novels out. That's what I use these processes for. But I will freely admit I geared this mostly towards the entrepreneur. That's the broadest audience, and that does include authors. So welcome aboard, everybody. All right. Now, let's get into this great interview with Kirsten, and I hope that you're all staying safe. I hope we're staying safe. It's funny to talk about this. I'm really I'm more than a week out from when this is going to go live, and so it's interesting to think anything could happen between now and then. But all that behind us. Enjoy this interview with Kirsten McCay-Smith, and if you have any questions about the RV lifestyle or you want to add to this conversation, please do so. Call me at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Or you can leave me a voicemail. You can also do that on the Word Slinger Podcast website at wordslingerpodcast.com. Send me a voicemail. Send me an email. You can leave me a voicemail from SpeakPipe. And that's pretty much it. Now let's get to the good stuff. And stick around after the interview for the wrap-up. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And, this week we're talking to somebody now this is a topic that you've heard me talk about a lot on the show recently because of the plans that my wife and I have we're downsizing and we're getting ready to hop in an RV and live a full-time RV lifestyle. And there's been a couple of shifts in our plan recently, but we're still on board. We're still trucking forward. But today I'm talking to somebody who's actually done this and has written a book about it. And I can't wait to hear all the, we already, just before the call, had we had a quick conversation about a couple of the pitfalls of this lifestyle. So I can't wait to hear what she did to resolve it. But I'm talking to Kirsten McCay-Smith, who is an entrepreneur, and she's also the author of Living in an RV. And, Kirsten, I love what you said before the call about, you consider yourself an entrepreneur because I'm going to butcher this, but you consider yourself an entrepreneur because you want to be able to dictate your own lifestyle, right?
Correct. Yes.
That's I think pretty much the definition of an entrepreneur is just somebody who wants to set their own rules and wants to set their own timetable and agenda. So I think you and I have that in common, along with the RV thing. So tell me a little about living in an RV.
Well, about 3 years ago, or a little over 3 years ago, my husband and I, we had talked about it for a couple years. Right. What it would be like to sell everything and move into an RV and live in an RV. And he was actually really, really wanting to do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure if that was something I wanted to do, but he was really intrigued by it and excited by it. So I thought a little more about it, and we decided at the end of 2012 that we would take a look at where we were at financially and in our lives and see how long it would take until we could do it. Yeah. And by the end of December in 2012, I was like, well, do you want to do it next year? And my husband's like, heck yeah. So he was all excited, and I'm like, okay, we'll make it work. So in January of 2013, we started looking at RVs online, and we had never even been in an RV before. So we had never camped in an RV. We never owned an RV. We never even had driven an RV. And we found one online that was about 400 miles away. And we decided, hey, let's go get it. So about 2 weeks later, we drove, went and got it, brought it home, and immediately started moving things into it, because that's how we were determining how much stuff we could keep.
Right.
And basically whatever didn't fit in it, we got rid of.
Okay. Bold.
Right. Yeah. So we just got rid of whatever didn't fit. And it was a process. It took about a month and a half to fine tune that. And we actually had too much stuff when we left, when we took off in the RV, and we ended up getting rid of more stuff along the way.
Yeah.
But that was, the first cut. And so on March 1st, we rolled out. So it was only about 6 weeks later. About 8 weeks later, we rolled out and we were off. And ended up, we are back we rented out our house. We didn't sell it. We sold all our furniture, got rid of everything inside of it, but we were renting out the house. So we actually ended up coming back into our house about 2 months ago. So we are on the road for over 2.5 years.
Wow. 2.5 years. I mean, that's about what my wife and I figure we will do, about that range of time. But, and of course, we sold our house. What made you decide to just rent yours out?
I actually have always wanted to own property.
Yeah. Just
as an investment. So I wanted to keep it whether we ever decided to move back into it or not.
Right. Okay. And did you so we thought about that and decided that the hassles of renting it and, having to deal with, I guess, landlord issues while we were on the road would be too much. Did you have any nightmares when it came to that sort of thing?
We actually went through a rental agency for that reason.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So we had that was the same as us, because we didn't know where we would be at what time, and if we didn't want them calling us in the middle of the night because, something crazy. So we actually went through a property manager, and it worked. We had never done that before. We had never rented out a house. We didn't know anything about it, and we found an amazing company. It just happened to work out really, really well.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Is the company something like national or something that people could use? Or
No,
Okay.
it's just a local. We live in northern Colorado. It's just it's a northern Colorado company.
Okay. And I can tell you're from Colorado because you say Colorado instead of Colorado like the rest of us imbeciles do.
Right.
My wife and her family are from Colorado, so I'm trying to get used to saying it that way. So you now I've got tons of questions, and we'll never get to all of them in time. So, so we may end up having to. You may be one of the lucky ones that gets scheduled for a comeback, sooner rather than later. But one of the questions that everyone asks me. Now, I have a portable career. I'm a writer and a podcaster for a living, so I have a portable career. My wife, on the other hand, does not have a portable career. So one of the questions we're always asked is, what are you going to do for income while you're on the road? What did you guys do for income?
So that's a great question because we only relied on our income. We started this still in debt with no savings, which is something that if we were to do this again, that would be different because that was a challenge.
Right.
I actually run a couple online businesses.
Okay.
And, but not enough. It wasn't enough to, we couldn't do everything we wanted to do. We were on a really strict budget while we were living in the RV.
Oh, okay.
So I was able to make some money on the road, both online and in the communities that we were living in. When we would stay places for, a few weeks to a few months.
Okay, so
my husband, on the other hand, what was that?
So it was the whole work camper thing?
No, just my businesses allowed me to, I could meet clients. I could, network in the community we are in and meet clients.
Very good. Okay, all right. Sorry to
for
interrupt.
business, because no. I want to make sure that it's clear so people understand. So I'm in sales online, which I do 99% online. Mm-hmm. But when you're in sales, you get more sales when you can meet new people and network.
Right.
So
right.
I was able to do that. My husband, on the other hand, does not have any a business like that or any skills like that. He owned his own business doing garage doors before.
Okay. And
so for the first 2 years, he just didn't work.
Oh, okay. Handy.
And then, I know, yeah, he loved it for sure.
Okay.
And then when we ran out of money, he actually had to get a job. So when we would pass through town, which was every few months, usually, he would do work for a friend who owned a garage door company in the local area. Okay. And then we actually, the last 5 or 6 months that we spent in the RV was local to that company. And he ended up working full-time for that company so that we could get out of debt and move back into our house debt-free.
Okay. I mean, that's great, actually. That's a great end result, is to be able to move back debt-free. And you said you guys started with debt, so you had to actually pay this debt down while on the road.
Yes, and we didn't know anything about RVs at all. So the first 3 months, we put $10,000 into the RV in repairs.
Oh wow! Okay.
So that was it was a whole it was a big learning curve. It was crazy, but so we ended up with way more debt than we started with. And so those last six months that we were pretty stationary in one city, we were staying at an RV park still in our RV, but we weren't moving around those last 6 months. And my husband was working full time. That was our number one goal, was to work and work and work and pay off everything so that when we moved back in the house, we'd be in a good position.
Okay. And so did you guys buy a used RV when you started?
Yes, it was very used, which was part of why we had to put so much money into it.
Right.
But we didn't know, since we had never even camped in an RV or driven an RV, we didn't know if we would like it. And we didn't want to spend $100,000 and then 2 weeks later be like, screw it, we don't like this.
Yeah, exactly.
So we actually bought, it was in 1998.
Wow. This was in 2012, right?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so pretty old.
Yes. And but it was a diesel. It's a diesel, and it had a diesel engine.
Okay.
So the engine was pretty new for a diesel, and we needed something big enough to pull my car, his motorcycle, and get up and down the hills, because we did spend a lot of time in hilly country.
Right.
So
Okay.
we had a 37-foot diesel Class A giant thing.
Nice. That's a
Yeah.
fairly large, to me that seems like a large motorhome.
Yeah, it was really big, and we got a hydraulic lift for his motorcycle, welded onto the back, and then that pulled my car.
Okay.
So the whole thing was really, really long.
Had either of you had experience driving something that big before?
My husband drove, he's driven big things before. He's worked in construction a lot,
Okay.
but not that specific rig.
Right.
He did not like driving it at all.
Yeah. Well, did he ever come around to it, or did he always hate it?
He always hated it.
That's one of the things I'm worried about most. I mean, now my wife is pretty adamant that she wants us to get a fifth wheel instead of a motorhome, and to me that seems like it's going to be even more stressful to drive. But I don't know. I've only driven trucks with trailers, maybe short distances, so it's going to be kind of a learning curve on the whole thing. So, so you guys got a used motorhome.
Yeah.
And I'm making the distinction because I didn't realize there was. I always thought that an RV was the motorhome, but it turns out RV
Me
is more
too.
of a generic term for the whole the whole business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things you learn when you start looking into this. So you guys had never done this, never even gone camping in one of these before, and decided,
No.
screw it, we're just going to rent the house and go live in one for 2.5 years.
Yes, we kind of have a high risk tolerance.
I love
which
it.
Makes me a good entrepreneur.
Right.
But
I was going to say that's a very much in line with being an entrepreneur. So roll those dice.
Right.
So,
Right.
That's cool. So what were some of the first lessons you guys learned when you got into it?
Well, the very first thing we learned, so since we decided so suddenly to do this, we actually in 2013 already had 5 or 6 things that we committed to throughout the year, such as our niece was graduating from law school and our nephew was getting married. So these big events that we already committed to going to,
Right.
that were all over the country. And so we were like, oh, this will be perfect. We'll just drive all over the country going to all these events. So the first event we had was, we left March 1st, and we had to be in Las Vegas, I think it was March 5th, for a conference. That was the 5th through the 13th. And then 5 days later, I had earned a trip to Disney World in Florida. And we were thinking, because we're both big road trip people in our cars, and driving from Nevada to Florida in a car is easily doable in 5 days.
Yeah. So what?
And we realized after one day of driving the RV that was not going to be doable in an RV.
Really?
So because we were used to driving in a car, we could easily drive 12 to 14 hours in a day. And that's what we thought we would be doing in the RV. And my husband would get really tired after driving 4 hours.
Okay.
So we would stop and rest and go, rest at a rest area, walk around. We had a dog, so we'd walk our dog. And, I'm an athlete, so I would, run a couple miles. And then we would take off again.
Right.
And another 4 hours, we would stop for another hour. And by then he'd be ready, you know. And then the other thing we learned is if you're going to stay at a truck stop, you need to get there early.
Right.
Because they fill up. And so we were stopping by, 5 o'clock because it was March, so it would get dark.
Right.
We'd stop by 5 o'clock, and that would only give us 7 or 8 hours on the road. So we really had to push to get to Florida by that date. And after that, my husband's like, okay, we need to redo our entire plan for the year.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So part of our trip, we actually, because I do a lot of races, I'm a triathlete, and part of our trip was from Florida, we were going to go to Utah for my race and a couple other things, and then to New York for my niece's graduated from law school.
Right.
And my nephew's wedding. So instead of doing that, because we wouldn't have had enough time, my husband actually drove the RV from Florida to New York, and I made the side trip in my car to Utah and then up to New York so that we could both get it in.
Wow. This, by the way, never occurred to me that it would be rougher driving with the RV.
Yeah, well, and
but it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's just slower because, like, through the mountains, we couldn't go 80 miles per hour like we're used to.
Yeah, right.
You know, we have this giant RV full of everything we own, pulling our car and our motorcycles, and trying to go up through the mountains. And even with a diesel engine, you know, it has a big engine. It could still only get up to 50 miles per hour up the hill.
Right. That's something to note. I don't think in terms of that because I'm from the Houston area. Everything's flat here. So when we're in the mountains,
right.
I'm driving that speed anyway. So maybe, or then again, I guess it would slow me down to 35 miles per hour or something. I'll be the guy holding up all the traffic on the mountain.
Right.
Yeah, everyone's going to love me. So, all right, you've got this used RV. You dumped $10,000 into fixing it up. Did you guys stick with the same RV the entire time?
Yes.
Okay, because I always hear people talk about, once we were in it for a year or so, we got another, we traded up or whatever. So that I was curious about that, but you guys never thought about trading up? It met all your needs, I guess.
It met all our needs. We actually, because I work from home pretty much, we converted the quote dining room area into my office.
Okay.
So we basically got rid of the table and chairs and put in a little desk and some files and drawers and stuff so I made that into my office.
That's very cool.
And other than that, I mean, the RV was amazing. It had so much storage. It met our needs, like you said. So we didn't, and it was fine. It was perfect for what we were doing. Right.
So, the other question everyone always asks is, don't you think you're going to be on top of each other all the time? I mean, did you have that experience? Did you have to adjust to that?
A little bit. It wasn't too bad. The hardest thing I think is the bathroom is open to everything in our RV. Right. I mean, you could close the doors, but we, I don't know. It was just both two of us, so we never really closed doors. So, while I'm brushing my teeth, he's going to the bathroom. Things like that that people are like, oh, I could never do that. You just get used to it.
I'm going to have a hassock or something that I can just slip outside, take care of business.
Exactly. So that it was never actually really an issue. And, we kind of do our own, we live, we're very different people, and we kind of do our own thing. So we were never just sitting around doing nothing, going you're in my way.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. My wife and I,
he would go, he would go on a motorcycle ride for 4 hours, and I would be working or, things like that.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, it's good. It's good to have two different sets of hobby or work responsibilities that get you kind of, going in different directions at least part of the day. I think that's going to be a challenge for me and Kara, mostly, I mean, I don't know, maybe, because she's into like historic preservation and that sort of thing. So we're kind of hoping she'll get a chance to sort of explore the history of places that we visit while I write. And so that may save us. So what was okay, so you're on the road. What's the reason? I mean, what is it you guys are visiting? Where, other than the events that you're traveling back and forth to, I mean, where did you spend most of your time parked, and what did you do?
The longest we stayed in one place, other than those last 6 months in which we were in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Mm-hmm. The longest we stayed was 3 months in Southern California. Okay. Because that's where my sister and her kids live, and I'm really close with them. Okay. So twice, we went and visited them a couple times. Right. And then they own an RV, and they do a lot of camping, so we met them at a couple places for their family camping. But we actually parked at their house twice for 3 months each time. Mm-hmm. And so we were just parked in their driveway, plugged in. So we just used, their bathroom inside their house because we were right next to them.
Handy.
Yes. And then another time we were parked for 2 months at a friend's house, or at my husband's brother's house. Mm-hmm. And then 2 months and that was in Colorado, and then 2 months in Florida at a friend's house. Right. And then other than that, it was RV parks.
Okay. Like these.
And then the longest we stayed at an RV park other than Cheyenne for those 6 months was in Lake Tahoe. We stayed for 3 months mm-hmm. in an RV park there.
So what were you doing in these places? Like, did you play tourist everywhere you went, or was it?
Not really. In Tahoe, I was training for a race. Okay. And so I trained every day, for a few hours every day. Right. And then my husband was exploring, like he would go all day on his motorcycle for a couple days a week, and then he would mountain bike a couple days a week. Right. Walk around town. He's really the personable one, so he would go out and meet people. Okay. So he'd be like, "Oh, I met this guy on the trail. We're going out to dinner with him tonight." I'm like, "Okay."
That's interesting. You're the one in sales, but he's the personable one.
Yes. yes. So I'm he's the personable one. I'm the determined one. I'm the motivated one.
I understand. Okay. So, we talked a little about this before the call, so I know people are going to be interested. I know I am. How did you deal with like internet and phone and TV and mail and things like that? Like, how'd you deal with all that stuff?
So that was definitely our biggest challenge. Mm-hmm. Mail was easy. I just Googled a forwarding service. Mm-hmm. And signed up for a year and then renewed it each year. And they would just, so all my mail would go there. And then anytime I wanted it forwarded to me, like if we were at my sister's for a couple months, I would email them and say, forward my mail to here. Right. Okay. And then we just paid, I think it was super cheap, like $3 plus postage for them to forward it.
Right. It was at Escapees.
So that, it was just a small little place in Reno, Nevada.
Okay, I see. All right.
Yeah, I just found it online. It was nothing I'd ever talked to anyone about. Okay. So that was the easy part. The hard part was internet and phone service. Right. And before we started, because I was really worried about that, because 100% of my income is from computer pretty much and phone. And so my husband, before we left, he found a bunch of full-time RV chat rooms online and Facebook groups and stuff like that. So he was really active on things like that. And he asked people, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? About internet, phone, stuff like that. So he took all the advice, and we bought a booster. We bought an extra antenna. We bought all the things they told us to buy, and we probably spent about $1,000 on equipment to assure that we had internet all the time. Okay. And I would say we had subpar internet half the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm really worried about, actually. And so you guys did the whole, like, I'm sure the cellular modems and the Wi-Fi boosters for the campgrounds and things like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the problem, the Wi-Fi boosters for the campground,
Mm-hmm.
they boost the signal, but most of the campgrounds had such bad signal
Right.
that even though it boosted it, it would be like if we were sitting in their office, we
Right.
still wouldn't be getting good internet.
It was just
So
boosting bad signal is all it was doing.
Exactly. So it wasn't doing anything. So for like when we were in Tahoe for 3 months, there was no internet in the entire Lake Tahoe area because it's like a valley
Okay.
surrounded by mountains. So I had to go to Safeway, and luckily it was only a mile away, but I had to go to Safeway every single day.
And Safeway had like a Starbucks in it or something?
Yes, yes. So it was just
Wow.
a challenge because I wasn't in my work environment. It was very
Yes.
distracting.
Yeah. Yeah.
As
I can
you know.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a challenge for me.
So we did get a phone booster that worked pretty well. So I do a lot of conference calls and one-on-one calls with people. And I had the booster sitting right on my desk, and you have to put your phone physically in the booster. So I couldn't like move around or anything, which is fine.
Okay.
So that worked, the booster worked well. But if I moved out of if I got out of the RV, my phone didn't work.
Right. Right.
In a lot of places.
I'm seeing, I'm looking into this sort of passive repeater kind of thing that takes the signal and rebroadcasts it inside the RV. So hopefully that will work. Because I've seen the booster you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the technology is technology. It's amazing. So it's always getting better. So by the time you guys go, there might be something that works really well.
Right. That's what I'm hoping. To be honest, that's sort of part of the delay. I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
I just want to find out that, I want to just discover as soon as we get the RV that, they have this new technology that lets me get full speed internet on the road or whatever. That's what I'm waiting for. May not be realistic. Whatever. I've been a writer most of my career, and most of my adult life, I've had to go find internet somewhere. So I think I'll be all right. So what about, so I kind of want to talk about the spirit of this whole thing. Like, what would motivate people to do this? I mean, why did you do it? And why do you think other people are so, because it seems like this is big. It seems like people, I was surprised to discover every time I tell anyone about this, there's this big, wave of people who come and say, yeah, we're doing that. We just started that, or we're going to do that in a month, or, people are doing this now, the whole tiny house movement and the RV movement. So what do you think's behind all that?
Well, I can tell you why I did it. I think I hear about all this every single time I told people I live, during the whole time when I said, yeah, we live in an RV, if I meet somebody new, almost everyone is like, oh my God, that's our dream. I think people think it's going to be different than it is. I think what people think is that it's like freedom and they get to do whatever they want and it's the simple life and it's glamorous. To me, I compare it to owning your own business. Mm-hmm. So many people say, oh, you're so lucky you own your own business. You're so lucky you get to do whatever you want. You're so lucky you have all that freedom. I wish I owned my own business. But when it comes down to it, very few people can own their own business.
Right.
So I feel like it's the same thing. People think all the great things, but I think very few people could be successful living in an RV because it's harder than living in a house.
Yeah.
Like owning your own business, it has amazing rewards. I've owned my own businesses my entire life, but it's harder than having a job.
Right. That's true. I can vouch for that.
So I know. So I think that people just see the exciting things and the fun things and they don't see the work behind it and they don't see what you have to give up. And I think a lot of people aren't cut out for that. So I love that so many people have that dream. and we'll see. Maybe like I changed a lot over the last 2.5 years. It was not my first choice to do this. Right. It was my husband's. It was his dream, and I did it because we had been married at the time we've been married 19 years. So we had been married 17 years, and we had a lot of ups and downs. And to be honest, he had talked. We used to have a lot in common when we first met, but I was 23 years old. Right. And, we just started growing apart. And that was really frustrating to him. And he had mentioned on more than one occasion, we had talked about splitting up. And we had talked about getting a divorce, not because we didn't love each other, but because we weren't doing anything together. We had nothing in common. We were like best friends, and that was it. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe, this is what he wants to do. I'm going to make it work. And I don't know how you are, but you own your own business and you're an entrepreneur. So I feel like you might be kind of this way. I'm super anal and type A and routine and driven and not very flexible.
It might be described that way by some folks. I'm kind of laid back. Yeah.
I'm not. And so this was a big learning curve for me, and a lot of personal growth occurred. Mm-hmm. But it was worth it to me. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. So I had to learn to be flexible, and I had to learn if I couldn't, get on a conference call that I was supposed to run with 20 other people, mm-hmm. that I couldn't beat myself up about it and, be mad about it, because that's just the way it was.
Right.
So I did it to basically save our marriage.
Okay.
And was successful. Like that, it was the best thing that happened to us as a couple.
Wow, really? That's awesome.
which a lot of people think that's funny, because like you asked earlier, were you guys all up in each other's faces? A lot of people are like, oh my God, we would kill each other.
Yeah.
And we were the opposite, because my husband's biggest complaint about us pre-RV was that I didn't spend enough time with him.
Right.
I'm super workaholic, and I would love to work 24/7. He would have to come into my office when we lived in our house and say, "Are you coming to bed?"
Right.
Like at midnight, he's like, "Are you ever going to come to bed?" And I'm like, "Oh, I guess."
Okay, I do that. I get that. Okay.
So the fact that we were together way more than we ever had been was a big plus for us.
Nice. RV life as marriage counseling. I like it.
Exactly. So that was my reason.
You said that you changed then. So what's life like now? 2 months later, you've moved back into your old home. Are you back in your old office? I mean,
I am. So it was interesting, because it was my husband who wanted to move back into the house. Not me. If it was up to me, we'd still be in the RV right now.
Well, there's a polar flip right there.
Yes, it was very interesting. And all my friends were like, oh my gosh, that's so funny that he wanted to move home. And I'm like, and since it wasn't that big of a deal to me either way, but it was to him, I was like, sure, we'll move back into the house. So yeah, I'm back in my office. I see myself getting into, I see myself potentially falling into old patterns, but not enough. Like, my relationship is so important to me that I have a rule. Like, I work until my husband gets home from work at 6.
Okay.
So I work until 5, so I could do whatever I want until 5. And then I clean a little, I make dinner, and then after 6, I'm his. Mm-hmm. But the great thing is, like, he likes to get online and just decompress and like watch YouTube for an hour. So then I'm like, oh, good, I can work another hour.
So it's like bonus time, but
but it's on his schedule,
right? But the point there is you are available now. Whether or not that gets used is up to him, but you're available.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Yes,
I think my wife would appreciate that concept, actually.
Yes.
So that's,
and I'm definitely not as hard on myself as I used to be about I mean, I've always done a lot of failures. That's what we entrepreneurs do.
Right.
But I used to really beat myself up about failing and about not meeting goals or getting XYZ accomplished or my whole list checked off. And being on the road when there were days where I couldn't get online for 2 days. I mean, there were times where I couldn't get online for 2 days. And I was like, oh my gosh, my whole business is going to, fail. And it didn't. It was okay. But,
yeah, it turns out it all works out anyway, right?
Yeah. So I'm not as crazy as I used to be.
Right. So what is the biggest lesson learned from the road?
That is exactly what it is. It's, you have to be flexible to be successful in life.
Perfect. I like that. Yeah, I need to jot that down.
It really is. It's interesting because I knew that already. Like that, I'm really into personal growth, and I'm really into, all the big personal growth gurus. And I've always known that flexibility and being able to change with your environment and the situation is a characteristic of all successful people. But I wasn't able to transform myself into that without that experience.
Right. Well, that's a good lesson to learn, I think. I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs could stand to learn that. I can certainly stand to learn that. So, okay, well, all right. We've gone through your whole sort of the system of your life there and how things worked. I mean, and your big life lesson, which I think is a valuable lesson. So, what are you going to miss now that you're back home?
I definitely miss the simplicity of it.
Yes.
Because
even though you said it was more complicated than
yes, yes, because a house, I don't know. We're already like, we bought a couch. So we moved into our house with no furniture, nothing.
All right. So
I got a card table from my mom so I could at least work on a card table.
Right.
And my husband decided last month to buy a couch, and I was really sad. I was like, oh man,
really?
I didn't want that. I don't want I feel like we're turning into normal people again.
Yes.
And it scares me.
Yes, I could see that. That's interesting. That's that's like a psychological study all on its own. So.
Oh, right.
Well, I can see that. And I could see why you would feel that way after 2.5 years of living what is essentially a fairly extraordinary life. I mean, your backyard and front yard may change from day to day. You never know.
Right.
That's
right.
Pretty amazing. Now you got the same view for years to come. So what would you recommend to people if they wanted to get into this? I mean, obviously buy your book, which is... I was literally just looking at it. You'd think I'd have the title completely memorized, but Living in an RV, How You Can Make It a Reality. So obviously buy your book, but what is the next step?
I would say I'm a bad person to ask this question because, like I said, I'm a total just do it girl.
Yeah, but you literally wrote the book on this. That you should not be a bad person to ask this question.
I know, but me personally, I would say, if you want to do it, find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the details because they're all going to be different when you start.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the data and collecting all this information because as soon as you start, something's going to happen and it's going to be different than you thought anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's brilliant. So
why postpone it just to get more settled into it when you don't even know what's going to happen? And it's such a different experience for everyone.
Right.
That my advice is to anyone in anything in life is if it's something you want, just do it.
Yeah. All right. I'm on board, and I support that. And I believe Nike supports that sentiment as well.
I think so. I don't even get paid. I don't even get paid by Nike.
A special Nike endorsement. So, all right, we're kind of at the end of our time, which is unfortunate because I know I could come up with a few hundred more questions, and I'm definitely interested in this lifestyle. Obviously, I can't wait to get on the road myself. We're kind of in a sort of an in between period, but I'm feeling it coming. So. I'm glad to meet people who are doing this. So thank you so much for being on the show, Kirsten. I really appreciate it. And
yeah, you are welcome. If you think of any other questions, feel free to ask, because I want to help everyone make this a reality.
Absolutely. I may hit you up on. I'll take you up on that, because I'm thinking of writing some pieces about this, by the way, and I'm going to be writing and producing things about this as we go. So we will definitely have to chat. I just ordered your book too, so.
Perfect.
I'll be reading your book. Yeah, we didn't get a chance to do that before the show because it happened in like a week. So that said, everyone listening, within the sound of my voice, you will find links to everything we've talked about, as much as I can fit into the to the card here, including links to where you can buy the book online in primarily Amazon. I guess it's only on Amazon right now, right?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. And you'll find links to that, as well as links to Twitter, Facebook, and all the other pertinent details, anything we discussed on the show. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for being on the show. And if I have questions, or if my listeners have questions, I'm certainly going to pass them your way. So thanks for that.
Yes, for sure. Thanks, Kevin. This was really fun.
Oh, I love it. Okay, everybody, stick around for the wrap-up after the interview, and we will see you all next week. And that was our interview with Kirsten McCay-Smith. And, this whole notion of the RV lifestyle, now there's a movement, at least in the United States. When I was talking to Joanna Penn, she was fascinated by this movement, but she told me that it's not really happening in Europe. It's only sort of centered on the United States right now. And that is the small house or tiny house movement, where people are suddenly deciding we want to downsize, we want to decrease our footprint, we want to, maybe get on the road, or maybe just, live in a smaller space, take up less space, in the world around us. And this has a lot of implications for individuals and couples and families in general. And it has a lot of implications for our society. Kara and I, our motives we will admit, are more about our sense of freedom and our sense of having lived a life worth living by our definition, but and less about reducing our carbon footprint or reducing the impact we have on the world. That really just ends up being sort of a we'll call it a happy side benefit to having this lifestyle. So as Kara and I kind of look into this more, we're starting to kind of reduce the amount of junk that we own, the stuff that we own. We're downsizing. We have right now. Let me just break it out for you. We have sold our home, which was about 2,500 square feet ish, 4 bedrooms, and we are now we're renting a 1-bedroom apartment, which I believe is about 1,000 square feet, maybe 1,200, maybe more. I'm really terrible at that part, but so we have that, and we also have a garage where we are currently storing our A-liner travel trailer. And we also have a storage unit, a fairly large storage unit, which is filled with stuff. All right, so that's 3 locations in our lives that are filled with our things. And the goal by the end of this year is to empty out that storage unit as much as we can. I mean, there are some things we're unwilling to part with. Furniture left to her by her grandmother, for example. Some things left to me by my grandparents. A few, I have like a comic book collection, and I consider every now and then I consider selling that, but then I don't know. I think about it. It's such a huge part of my childhood and everything. I don't know. We'll see. There's some letting go that has to happen. But we've got a lot of stuff that just sort of takes up space. And there was a realization recently that we're actually spending money. We're paying money every month to hold on to things that no one else wants and that we don't want. We can't give some of these things away. And we hold on to it out of some sort of sense of nostalgia and responsibility. But the reality is it's worthless to everyone else. So we would do a better service to it by donating it, selling it, doing it, whatever we have to do, so that it can find a home with someone who appreciates it more than we do. So, and that's if you believe in sort of the, the emotion of things, which I don't really. But as far as emotional baggage for those of us who are holding on to it, it's weighing us down. So I think that's kind of what the whole tiny house movement is about, is, taking a step back and looking at your life and saying, I own all these things that I can't even utilize. I mean, if I were to break it into percentages, out of the 100% of things I own, I'd say I probably only use regularly maybe 2 to 5% of that. And that's ridiculous. So anyway, when you get it down to numbers, it really does sound, it's so clinical, but I know there's emotional attachment and nostalgia to work around here, but honestly, when it comes down to it, there are just some things that we just don't need anymore. So why not pass those on to someone who can get some use out of them? That's what we're coming from. So anyway, and as we get on the road, we get in an RV, we're going to need, to be a lot lighter, and our percentage of use may go up actually with the things we own versus what we use. So who knows? If you are interested, by the way, in the RV lifestyle and this portable life that I'm starting to build, and that I'm building a sort of brand presence around, something is coming. I keep mentioning it. I keep promising it. It's true. I'm building something now that I think you're really going to appreciate. And we'll see what we do with it. I'm considering some additions or changes to the podcast because of this. I haven't really landed on what I want to do with that yet. The strategy's still a little raw, but there is something coming. So what I'm looking for from you, and you can help me out a lot, if you will call me, 281-809-WORD, 281-809-9673. You can leave me a voicemail, and here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for questions about portability and downsizing and living a smaller footprint life, portable life. I'm looking for suggestions about that. I'm looking for questions about that. If you know of resources and tools that might be useful to someone who's doing that, technology, apps, software, that sort of thing, how to eat right while you're on the road. If you know people who have written books about this or who do podcasts about this, or otherwise are building something and have created something around this portable lifestyle, put me in touch and tell me all about it, because this is something, this will help me with a project that I believe will help you. So 281-809-WORD, 281-809-9673, or visit me at wordslingerpodcast.com, where you can leave me a voicemail. While you're over there, pick up some books. As I said earlier, 30-day authors on sale for 99 cents, but you can also get the starter library, which is my fiction. I offer 3 books for free if you sign up to my mailing list, so definitely do that. You get some reading while you're on the road. And I've got a new book in progress that I think people are going to like, and it's sort of it's a new turn for me. I'm writing something that's outside the typical genre I write in. At the advice of my good friend and partner, Nick Thacker, I'm writing something that's more in we'll call it a sort of Dan Brown-esque type story. I think you're going to dig it. And given that I recently decided that books like Evergreen, which has been very popular with my readers, that sets the tone for the type of story I want to tell from now on. I really enjoyed writing that. I've enjoyed the response to it. So this is not quite like Evergreen. It's similar in that it is a action-adventure type story with a little bit of espionage and that sort of thing. But Evergreen kind of skewed paranormal, and I'm actually avoiding that with this book. So, but the other than that, they're pretty much in the same vein. In my thinking, we'll see. You can let me know. But pick up Evergreen if you're kind of wanting a preview of what I'm doing here. But I'll keep you updated as I get closer to releasing this book. I'd say I'm about a quarter of the way through the first draft now. By the time you listen to this, I'll probably be well past the halfway mark, actually. So, as I write every day, it grows. So, anyway. All that said, we're going to wrap up. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week. I'm going to try to record something on the road. If I do, I may post that immediately instead of putting it in the queue, and let you listen in on some of our trip. So we'll see how it works out. No promises, because I don't know what it's going to be like. So take care of yourselves out there. Stay safe. Look for us on the road if you're anywhere between Houston and Orlando, keep an eye out. Maybe you'll spot the Word Slinger out in the wild. And if you do, introduce yourself and let's take some photos together or something. We'll put them on the website and we'll love on each other a little. So take care of yourselves, everybody. See you next week.
Word Slinger.